Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Yes, it's true that we were all impacted by COVID in some way this year. But I'll be honest, if you scrolled through my Twitter feed this summer and fall, you'd never know there was anything going on. But for the organization that today's guests run, that couldn't be further from reality. Joe Ellison, the relatively new GM of the Ontario Bluejays, tells us how being north of the border essentially shut them down for almost a year. When I say shut down, I mean 0 games for the better part of a year. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm Rich Prado. I'm going to try to steer the ship today. Today, we're going to talk about some interesting things because we're heading north of the border. We've got Joe Ellison from OBJ. That's Ontario Bluejays. I know everybody in travel ball just knows OBJ, though. So from here on out, that's how you'll be referred to. Joe, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I hope everything's good south of the border.
Yeah, you got it, man. This is going to be an interesting call. I wanted to have you on for a long time now, but it's almost better timing. So we're recording this. It's first week of November 2020. We're coming off, a crazy year, the year of the COVID. Everybody had some amount of stress and craziness, and we're going to get to some of the trials and tribulations that OBJ had to put up with. But before we do all that, let me just kind of hand the mic over to you, let you introduce yourself. You don't have to go all the way back to T-ball for our listeners, but maybe give us an idea of, what your involvement with baseball was and how you came to be part of OBJ and where you are now professionally with OBJ, and maybe kind of where OBJ is from a whole.
All right, yeah, for sure. So I grew up playing baseball just outside Toronto in Mississauga, just for local rep teams before joining OBJ. I actually had the opportunity to play for Bob Elliott, who's in the Hall of Fame, as a writer with the Mississauga North Tigers. But then I moved on to OBJ. I played 4 years here. Had great experience with the organization. Always thought it was something that I wanted to get back into once I finished playing. Who knew when that was going to be? I ended up going to Cisco College in Texas as a freshman. I ended up redshirting there, and then transferred to Connors State College in Oklahoma before going to South Dakota State. So I kind of worked my way up the Midwest before returning here. So I ended up tearing my labrum, and then walked into an opportunity where, I came to the program as a pitching coordinator in 2013. Was doing everything from stocking shelves in the storage room to mopping floors, kind of grinding away to, make money and have an opportunity to give back to the program that, I always really appreciated and something that I thought was so valuable in the area. From there, my role kind of grew. I mean, we started going through changes. We had different leadership in here, different owners. Worked my way to director of baseball operations before eventually last year taking over as general manager here with OBJ. Since then, there's been a bunch of changes, in the last, 12, 18 months. But all in all, we're in a really good spot here with OBJ right now. I'm really happy with, the changes we've made. Our ownership group is fantastic. They have full support of us. And, like you mentioned there at the beginning with COVID, everyone's been through a lot, but to have the support of the Wilkinson family has been incredible for us.
Let's pause there for a second, because I think the setup is kind of different than, I would say, the normal, or the maybe normal is not the right word, but the majority of clubs that I'm familiar with. You're in a position of GM. You're not the owner of OBJ. You just mentioned the family that owns it. What are their names?
Joe and Stephanie Wilkinson.
Wilkinson. The Wilkinson family owns, and were they the founding family of OBJ, or did they acquire the business from somebody else?
They acquired the business in 2015, late 2015, early 2016. When we moved into our new facility here, so we have a 55,000 square foot facility that we lease. They jumped in and got involved. They've been through, everything over the last 5 years. But yeah, their son actually played for me his 16th year. And it's funny how the world works. He plays for me. I used to get mad at him for throwing his helmet, and now his parents own the business that I operate. So
that's interesting.
It's crazy how things happen.
I would say it's way more common to have an owner-operator. It's some guy, he throws a shingle, on the side of the building, and he's in business. Whether it's going straight to the teams or it's a facility and he's running lessons, and then he goes, let's throw some teams in there. So it seems way more common to have the owner operator set up versus what you guys have in this circumstance, where it's a ownership group or family, and they've hired a staff to run their investment for them, basically. That's pretty interesting. And for the listeners at home, it tells you, man, if you do a good job with what you have, there is an opportunity to exit. Just off the top of my head, I know we guest number one on this show was Bob Reichman from the Scorpions down in Orlando, and he purchased the Scorps from Matt Gerber and Brian Martinez, who purchased the Scorps from Sal Lombardo. So it's already changed ownership groups twice. So guys who are running your teams, man, do a good job, build an asset. There might be a financial reward at the end of this thing for you if you want there to be. So as the GM for the Wilkinsons and for OBJ, what are all of the responsibilities that you have now?
It's endless. I run the building that we use alongside the daily operation of OBJ. I mean, handling the finances of it, planning the trips, booking the hotels. I have a great staff around me. I have Mike Sienna, Corey Eckstein, Sean Schaefer, that we've put together to help facilitate this. I mean, we've gotten a little smaller over the last couple of years, which has made my job a little bit easier. But with that, there's always stresses. Obviously we talk about COVID and whatnot, and trying to get teams all over the place. It's been a really interesting, 6 months to be the GM of a program like this, and especially being in Canada and trying to find ways to get to the States to get our kids the exposure they need. But every day is different. It's why I love my job. Is no day is the same. There's always a new thing. There's always a new challenge ahead of me, and it's a fun way to go about things. Now,
this fall was obviously different for you. We're going to talk about this fall and what you did, and obviously this past summer throughout the whole COVID stuff. But I want to go back to last fall and pretty much all the falls before that, because the fall, in my opinion, is you guys create an experience that is almost, in my opinion, it's one of the things that is probably one of the biggest gold stars for OBJ, and it's the fall. It's your fall trip. Can you, for that one listener out there, my mom probably doesn't know much about OBJ. Can you describe what the fall trip? You just give the quick one. You don't have to give us stop by stop, but give us an idea of who goes, what the fall entails, how you generally travel, and who you're playing, which is the most important part.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been doing the Collegiate Fall Tour all the way back to when I played for OBJ. I mean, I got to go on it twice. We travel across mostly eastern United States down into the south, sometimes the Midwest, depending on where the schedule takes us. And we really try and do a great job of having some variety on our fall trip. We have our staples. We have places we go every single year. The last Monday before Jupiter, we're playing Florida State at 3 p.m. It's been there forever. I hope it stays forever. I mean, now Junior's there, and he's been great with us, and we played him last year. And but yeah, we play UVA every year. And then we try and mix
you jumped the shark a little bit, and you gave away some of the highlights. But the long story short is you load a charter bus. And you're basically working your way down to Florida, and along the way, you're stopping at U.S. colleges, and most of the time it's premier Division I programs, and you're playing them. You're lacing up the spikes, and you're going toe to toe against UVA, against a Florida State, against some of the premier powerhouses in Division I baseball, which is one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. I mean, even for our coaching staff, I mean, you know, I went as a pitching coach when I first came back after college, but then I ran the team 2 years ago, and to meet the coaches, to meet, you know, Mike Martin Sr. and Mike Martin Jr. and all these guys, it's kind of surreal even for the staff. I mean, I had a couple of young guys with us 2 years ago, and they were kind of blown away. They'd never seen things like that. And to see the level of baseball, and for the kids, there's no experience like it. There's, you know, one of the biggest compliments our program gets is, you know, when we're doing college placement and I'm talking to the recruiting coordinator, he's like, man, the thing I like most about your guys is they're mature, they're talented, whatever. But the big thing is I feel like I'm getting a sophomore. I don't feel like I'm getting a freshman. This kid's not afraid to be away from his mom and dad. This kid's not afraid to go to war against a 24-year-old senior, you know, with a beard and whatnot. Like our kids come in with that level of preparation that's a step above anybody in Canada for that matter. But, you know, probably some places in the U.S. too that don't get those opportunities.
Let's clarify, in the event that there's a parent of a freshman here stateside, and, you know, let's say their kid plays for Reichman down in Florida with the Scorps or whatever organization, and they're going, hey, wait, when are we going to get to play against Florida State? When are we going to get to play against Duke? When are we going to get to play against Virginia? Time out. We can't. If you're here stateside, you cannot do that. That's an NCAA violation. But you guys have an exemption. Can you just quickly explain how you make this trip possible?
Yeah, so it's each Division I school gets an international game. So we take up, I think they've actually expanded it to 2 now, but it used to just be 1. So the university can make the choice to play an international team, and obviously being Canadian, we have that opportunity. Junior college is a little bit more lax. But yeah, at the Division I level, you have the international game, and we're lucky enough that these programs choose to play us with that game. It's
almost a loophole, because in a lot of ways, you guys, you guys aren't that different than most of the premier clubs in America. The difference is you're across the line, which makes you international, which makes it totally above board, totally legal, and really awesome opportunity for your guys. And it's really twofold. For your guys, it's a chance to showcase in front of these college coaches, to play. I mean, mostly you guys are, I know you probably do in and out and take BP, and but from what I've seen, and I've been to a bunch of the games, I've gone down to Norfolk to see you guys when you guys were playing at the Old Dominion. And I've seen you guys multiple times up at UVA up in Charlottesville. But the flip side is these coaches get a chance to see your players bear down. So it's actually it's helpful for both sides, which is pretty cool. So quick story. I don't know if you were on the trip when Josh Naylor, he's the oldest Naylor. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Josh Naylor must have been a senior, uncommitted senior. Wait, when did he commit? Did he commit senior year or junior year?
He was a junior, I believe, when he committed. Texas Tech.
When I saw him, Texas Tech, that's right. When I saw him at in Norfolk. By the way, who's he with right now? Is he with San Diego?
He's with the Indians now.
He got traded. He's with the Indians. Josh Naylor, big leaguer, hitting balls a mile, moonshots right now. When I went down, was going to go down and catch up with Mike Steed down in Norfolk, which is about a 2-hour drive for me from Richmond. And I saw this kind of I don't know. Is it okay to call him a bad body left-handed hitter? My God. I mean, I never, I didn't know who the heck the kid was. And then he started taking BP. And there's a tree out there in right field that he just trimmed the tree. He was just limbing it. He was taking limbs off of this tree, just absolutely just limbed the tree up from top to bottom. It was one of the most amazing displays of batting practice. And then he was kind of, for as talented as he was sort of a late commitment. And then, of course, he went, where did he go, 12th or 14th overall, something like that?
13th for Marlins,
13th overall. Unbelievable. And he's got two little brothers. One brother was already a draft pick, I believe.
Yeah. Bo won in the first round as well. He's with Cleveland, too.
And then there's another little brother who's pretty, is he the best one?
You know what? He's different than the other two. Josh has always been the high energy, kind of crazy guy. He's that. I mean, you see it in the dugouts when he hits home runs. I mean, with the Padres, he'd go crazy.
Yeah, that's
Josh to a T. Bo's a little more reserved, and then Miles, he's right in the middle. He's a shortstop, switch hitter, so he's right in the middle of the two of them.
Okay. Well, listen, we don't on this show. I don't really get caught up in individual players and individual accolades. Every organization I've talked to has had great players. Many of them have had first round, top 10 round picks. It's I usually don't get off on a tangent talking about specific players, but his round of BP was awe inspiring, and he was some uncommitted kid at the time. It was pretty interesting. Anyhow, so that trip that you guys did led you guys through the fall last year, and after your run in Jupiter last year, you return back up to the Toronto area, and your season basically comes to an end. And you head into your winter workouts, and then fast forward, to March and April, and, the world begins to shut down. Can you kind of walk us through sort of like October 2019 to at which point you returned to the field? I'm pulling up my notes, and it looked like you didn't return to the field until August of 2020, almost an entire year off the field. Can you talk about that and just walk us through sort of what your winter and spring was like, and then the whole thing, summer, fall, Jupiter, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, for sure. So we finished up in Jupiter, took the bus back, everything was normal. We always take 2 weeks off after Jupiter, give the kids a chance to kind of get back in school and recharge before we get going. And the off season was running normal. We do our thing all the way up till March. It was actually, we go to spring training every year. March break, we take the kids down to Florida. For the last 8 years, we've been in Dodgertown over in Vero Beach, but this past year was going to be our first year at IMG Academy. We were actually able to create a little partnership with them. We're really excited about it. I mean, anyone who's been to IMG knows what that is like.
Yeah.
It's first class everything, and we were really, really excited. So it was kind of surreal. I mean, I had flown down to Tampa to kind of get things set up alongside another coach, and then all of a sudden this COVID thing started happening, and we started hearing about it. And then I remember it like it was yesterday. It was when they pulled the teams off the court. I was watching the game in the hotel room. They pulled the teams off the court, and Rudy Gobert had tested positive, and that seemed kind of like the tipping point. I remember calling the Wilkinsons at the time and saying, I think we really need to consider whether we bring our kids down here. I don't know if we're going to, I don't know if the border is going to be open, and then you start playing that guessing game. And that was, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and the bus was scheduled to leave on Friday.
Oh.
And those are pretty stressful days. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we went back and forth, every day felt like it was, are we going or are we not going? And we'd be like, okay, we're going. They haven't shut down the border. And the next day we're like, I don't think we can do this. And we're just battling it back and forth. And we ended up, I think it was, we made the decision that we were going to do it. We were going to come. We were going to take the buses. The parents were okay with it. We were going to come. That was about 3:00 on Thursday. And then I go out for dinner with the other coach I was with. And then we come back and we talk again on the phone. And then we pulled the plug on the whole thing. it was pretty surreal. So it was about 6:00 Thursday night. We had to tell the parents, like, you know what, we don't feel comfortable. There's too much at risk. We don't know what to do. Not that we didn't know what to do, more so it's just we feel like morally the right decision is to not put the kids in this situation and to not, you know, have to turn the bus around or panic back on a Wednesday of the trip. So we make that decision. IMG was great with us. They gave us a full credit for this year, I should say. So, you know, all those kids that were supposed to have that opportunity are going to have it. So anyways, I ended up getting back a couple days later. Once I could get a flight, because that was a disaster at the time, because everybody, I mean, Team Canada was down there. I was in the Tampa airport with most of the Canadian area scouts and some of the media guys that were down there covering that. It was pretty surreal to have some of those conversations and be like, you know, this is wild what's happening in the world. So, but we come back, we had to shut down the program completely. We halted everything from March all the way until the end of June. Then we got the green light from the Ontario government that we could start doing small group stuff. So we were having groups of 10 kids. And for our program last year, we were around 150 players. So you can imagine how much time and effort that took. And at the time, we couldn't bring back our full staff. So there was 5 of us that ran the summer program here for our kids. You know, we started indoors. We did as much as we could. We had to get the kids back in the swing. Some of these kids hadn't thrown a baseball in months, and we had to take our time and get them back lifting and get them strong. And we worked into getting outside. And then we eventually, in August, we finally got outside and we finally played our first game. And it was an inter squad. And I won't lie, it was brutal. It looked like kids had not played baseball in a very long time. And
because they had,
you know, we worked through it. And, yeah, exactly. No, it was wild to see. It was crazy. You got some kids built mounds in their backyards and pitched, and some kids, you know, found a way to hit and whatnot. And you can, you know, and you can see the difference in some kids, but you're not blaming anybody at that point. At that point, you're like, okay, we are behind. Like, we need to find a way. And yeah, it was surreal, but we ended up doing a full fall schedule. We were able to start playing outside competition the midway through August, kind of like in little bubbles, so you could only play certain teams.
Pause there for a second. Pause there. I want to talk about the summer for a minute, because I mean, listen, in maybe about April, I'm sitting here thinking, I think the summer's done. And, you know, right or wrong, the big tournament companies, you know, the ones with the initials as their names, they, you know, they fought through it and they didn't cancel a thing. And, you know, when the big boys didn't cancel a thing, I think that gave the regional and local tournament companies and event companies sort of the confidence to not cancel. And man, then all of a sudden you get to like June 1st or whatever it was. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I bet your Twitter feed looks a whole lot like my Twitter feed. You wouldn't even known June, July, August. You wouldn't even known there was anything going on, because according to my Twitter feed, every event still happened. Teams were going all over the place. It was sort of weird. You know, and it's, I mean, I'm no infectious disease expert, but I'm just sitting there going, if there were a chance to have a super spreader event, it would look kind of like having 400 teams from across the country show up to one city and commingle in the same space and for a week, and then return back to their communities to spread the disease they just picked up at that tournament. But you know, there's, as far as I know, the baseball world didn't keel over. It was a pleasant surprise. You know, I know baseball teams that had some positive tests. I know, you know, so it's not like they avoided the COVID completely, but it also wasn't like the baseball community got sick top to bottom. So that was for me, it was a pleasant surprise. Now, as you're shut down and you can work, you know, you're talking about June and July, you're working with just 10 kids at a time. Meanwhile, you're looking at Twitter and seeing the whole world just across the border from you is playing like business as usual. What was that like?
It was pretty crazy. We had parents that, they're uncommitted kids. They're 17 years old. They're supposed to be going on the 17U summer trip, which would be your perfect game events, your future stars, all the events we typically go to. And they're going, what should we be flying our kid down? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And, luckily our parents, have great faith in us and they trust us that we're going to get their kid placed. But yeah, it was wild to see these events go and it's good for them that they were able to do that. It sucked for us that we couldn't get across the border, but you know what? I think we made the most of it. And, I think, when we get into Jupiter here this fall, I think, it showed what we did and we found a way to make the best of a really odd situation for us. To not be in Atlanta in July is just weird to even say.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Okay. So August finally comes, you finally get on a baseball field and it looked like Little Sisters of the Poor or a little better, just slightly better than that.
A little better.
Little better than that.
But little better than that. Yeah.
But not the elite level of OBJ clean baseball that everybody's used to.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, it's the older kids have caught on quicker, but our 14s and 15s it took a few weeks.
And so then what?
So then we got the green light to get playing outside teams. So we bubbled up with a couple teams from the GTA here, and we started playing. We were able to operate a full fall schedule locally. So our guys would practice once in midweek, and then play a game and then play a doubleheader on the weekend. That was for our 14s, our 15s, 16s, and 17s. Meanwhile, our Collegiate Tour, which we talked about earlier,
yep.
We had plans to be in Texas this fall, doing a junior college tour. We had plans to be in the Midwest, University of Iowa, all those normal places we were. We had to pull back on everything. And then we started, myself, Corey Eckstein, Mike Steed, we're sitting in a room and we're like, these kids deserve an opportunity to get to Jupiter. And they were playing up here against local teams, some universities from the area, trying to keep them busy and trying to keep them ready and training and practicing. And, like I said, Corey, Mike, and I got in a room and we're like, okay, how do we do this? How do we get these kids to Jupiter? Because they deserve the opportunity. The team's talented and we need to get there. So we start spitballing. Steeder's got incredible connections in college baseball through his time and spent in baseball. So he put together 3 or 4 schedules for us. We agreed on a schedule. We were ready to go. The buses are booked and we're on our way. Then we had a little, full disclosure, we had a little COVID scare. Luckily the kid was negative, but we had to cancel everything for 4 days. We had to wait and
waiting on his test to come back. What made you scared? Did he get a fever and he wasn't feeling good, or?
He just all of a sudden he was sick. He felt like crap and he called me and he's like, I think I need to get tested. I'm like, of course you do. We're not sending the bus down with the chance that you're sick, and we're just not it's not fair to the other kids and whatnot. So, it took 5 days to get the results, which was probably the most painful 5 days ever, because you're in a tough situation, right? Like you want to be gone, and, I'm dealing with the bus company and the hotels and the team, and then Steeder's dealing with the colleges and saying like, hey, we can't play this year. We had something came up, but anyways,
how close was that? How close was that to the day you were taking off?
That happened 3 days before we were supposed to leave.
So you actually had to delay pulling out?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, we were supposed to leave Sunday night, and we didn't end up leaving until the following what would have been Friday.
Almost a whole week waiting on that test, and then redoing the whole schedule then.
Yeah, we had to redo everything top to bottom, and luckily it all worked out. But
so you finally on that Friday, you load the bus, you get in the bus, and the bus driver, puts the bus in drive and hits the gas. How's it go from there?
So the kids get on, they all got to wear their masks. There's all the rules. They got the sanitization fog machine, which I've never seen before. It felt like a rock concert on the bus.
No kidding. Like a mist?
Yeah, there's like a sanitizing mist that they spray. I got told about it by the bus company, and I just said, okay, whatever you guys got to do to make it safe, I'm cool with it. And the only coach we sent, we actually We had 2 St. Louis Cardinal coaches. One of our former trainers, Chris Walsh, works for the Cards, and he got a buddy of his, Cody Gabella, who's a hitting coach with the organization. So they were already in Florida, so we just sent Mike. Mike was the only coach going across the border, so he hops on the bus with the kids.
Okay.
And they head off to Buffalo, where, like any other trip to Florida, we go through the Buffalo-Fort Erie border.
Yeah.
And we get there. We have all our paperwork, the plan, the itinerary, the hotels, everything we were told we needed. And the border officer said, you're not essential, and to go back home. So that phone call from Mike at the border was pretty wild. It was about 9:30. I get the call from Mike, and he says, hey, they're turning us back. We can't go. And I'm like, holy crap. And then so for those who don't know, if you travel from the U.S. to Canada, you have a 14-day quarantine put on by the government, and through the border agency, they take all your information. You have to quarantine away from your family, et cetera, et cetera. So Steeder turns the bus around. They get back across the bridge. They get to the Canadian border. And when they get to the Canadian border, the guy said, the Canadian border is always really good with us, obviously with as much as we have traveled. But the guy comes on the bus and says, you guys do know we could quarantine you for 14 days. And it's like, oh my goodness, Steeder's telling me this. He's texting me. And I'm going, oh my goodness. Luckily, the guys at the border were awesome with us. And they said, you never really went to the States. So
right.
We won't quarantine you. It's unfortunate what happened to you guys and whatnot. So they send them on their way. Well, they get back to the facility. Obviously, the kids are devastated. Like they're confused. They're going, what the heck are we going to do? We thought we were good. It was wild. So I talked to the guys and said, listen, we've, in that hour and a half it took you to get back here to the facility, we've already booked some flights. We're already, it seems like the only way to get to Florida this year is going to be in the air. And that's the only way it's acceptable. So, I tell the guys, Steeder's behind this 100%. We're going to change the schedule again. We got the flights on Tuesday. We're going to have one practice day, and we're going to be right into it. And it was pretty crazy. The kids end up hitting whatnot, and we figure it all out. We get the roster together, and they head to Pearson on Tuesday, and they all get through the border. The border officer wishes them good luck, and
unbelievable.
And they fly down to. They actually flew into Fort Lauderdale on the wrong side, since Jupiter was in Fort Myers.
Yeah, no kidding.
which doesn't make any sense.
Because Jupiter wasn't in Jupiter? Is that?
Yeah, but we still call it Jupiter.
Of course.
It's called Jupiter.
Yeah.
No one calls it the Worldwood Bat.
Yeah, of course. Wait,
yeah,
pause there. When you were originally going to take the bus, was that going to be a direct shot to Florida, or were you going to stop and play along the way like your fall, like a normal fall?
We were going to do a straight shot into Florida.
Okay.
Or actually, South Georgia. Sorry, South Georgia. We're going to play, I can't remember what junior college off the top of my head. The schedule's changed so many times. But then we were going to do Florida State. We were going to do the normal kind of tour in that way.
Okay.
And then practice and then work our way into Fort Myers.
So you didn't, in the grand scheme of things, by flying, you didn't miss a whole lot except about a 20-hour drive or 25-hour drive or whatever it is.
Fort Myers is about 25 for us. We've done it a couple times. Yeah. But, the kids, they didn't get to play any of the college games, but the kids all enjoyed flying 3 hours instead of driving 25.
No doubt. Those kids were pumped for that. It's unbelievable to think about from a bureaucracy standpoint that you coming across on the bus, thumbs down, you going over to the airport to hop on a plane, thumbs up. Weird.
It's crazy.
Crazy. So you finally, a lot of these teams think they had a lot to deal with this past summer and fall. They're gonna need to listen to this episode and just count how. Man, that's hilarious. So the call got cut off because I'm calling across the border. We're talking about driving across the border, and my Skype. I guess I ran out of quarters on the Skype call. So we're back. So what I was saying was incredible. These kids, in sort of a weird way, they actually got lucky that they got the fly down instead of having to do a 25-hour drive. Now, you finally get over there to the Fort Myers area and you're ready to play baseball. That's where our story is ready to pick up, because I kind of want to hear this day by day. How did Jupiter in not Jupiter go for y'all?
You know what? It was a great year for us. I mean, we played really, really well. So when we got there, like I was saying, so they flew into Fort Lauderdale. They bussed across to the Fort Myers area. We practiced that night just to kind of get ready to go. And then we always play, typically we play Thursday, 10 a.m. Against the Langley Blaze, which is another Canadian team that goes down there kind of under the Arizona Diamondbacks scouting team, or a scout team, I should say. Anyway, so we caught a little surprise when PG came out with the schedule. They actually scheduled it for Wednesday night, which was supposed to be another practice so we could kind of shake off the cobwebs and be ready to go. But anyway, so they ended up playing BC that night, won the game. So that was the first game those kids had played against anyone outside of Ontario in, God, a very, very long time. Anyway, so that was a good momentum thing for us. I think, we like playing that game for a variety of reasons. Obviously, Doug Matheson's a good friend out with Langley, and we've done it for many, many years. But for us to, I think, talking with Steeder to win that game and to get a little momentum heading into the big games was a really big deal for us. But anyways, then we run into pool play there, and the kids played outstanding. I mean, I wish I could have been there. We were all a couple coaches in each room here watching the live streams, trying to follow along with the tournament. Obviously talking with Steeder after every game, he would give us kind of some insights to things we might not have seen on the live cast. But no, the kids played outstanding. Our pitching was fantastic. We went 2-1 in pool play. Luckily we got in, I think it was the 26th seed, because we didn't give up any runs. Good pitching, right? Like that's the key in Jupiter. Having been there as many times as I've been lucky enough to do that, runs against is the key. That's you can sneak in at 2-1 because the competition is incredible. But the boys played fantastic, and then they made a little run of it. Getting into the round of 16 is awesome. We've done it a couple times in the past. The best we've ever done in Jupiter is the round of 8. But you know what? To get to the round of 16, to beat some of the team, take down an East Cobb, some programs like that are outstanding programs. Programs that we love competing against, and something like East Cobb. We have a big history with them, obviously going back as long as we do. But yeah, the boys played fantastic. The pitching was great. Steeder did an unbelievable job as always. I mean, it's so nice to have a guy like Mike take that team down there who's a true pro. Like he manages Thunder Bay in the Northwoods League in the summers typically, and then he manages our college team in the fall. So he did a fantastic job. And yeah, so then we played a couple exhibition games after the tournament, just to make the most of our time there. And then the boys flew home and went through the whole quarantine phase. And we were lucky enough again. We didn't have one positive test. No one came back with any symptoms. And the boys just started coming back into the facility last week. So they basically missed an entire month to have that, what would have been 6 or 7 day trip and experience.
Wow. It just goes to show you, I mean, you guys are, you're part of this travel ball world that we're in, but just crossing that little border, some line on a map, it just multiplies the amount of things that can trip you up. It multiplies the amount of work and effort. Man, what a year you guys have had. Holy cow. So, I mean, where we sit now is, should I assume we're in a kind of fingers crossed mode? This is November now. We're heading into the colder months. What's the school situation up there like? Are you guys in school? Are you all online learning? Did you guys have fall sports in Canada? I know down here where I am, we're virtual school, and all sports got pushed back. So they're going to do fall sports. They ain't going to start until I think December is when they're going to attempt to start the fall sports season. What's the situation up where you are locally?
So our kids had the choice. They could do. Each school district is a little bit different up here. They kind of left it up to each district to make their own decisions.
Sure.
We've got guys that are virtual. We got guys that are on a modified. I think it's a quadmester situation where they go to school for 2 hours a day. Everybody's kind of in a different boat. I mean, our kids are from all over the province, so
okay.
We got kids doing a bunch of different things right now, to be honest with you.
And I should clarify that That's exactly the same. Even from where I sit in Richmond, Virginia, if you just drive 25 minutes in one direction, you'll get everything from all online to all in school and everything in between. So so I should have been a little more clear about what's happening down here.
Yeah, I mean, for fall sports purposes, typically, you'd have the big thing obviously up here, being Canadian, hockey is completely shut down right now.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. That's the big one around here. You have the GTHL. That's the upper level hockey in the Toronto area, and they've pushed everything back. And can't quote me on this, but I believe it's the new year, maybe even February 1st.
Okay.
It's in this area is insanity.
That's when you knew it was serious.
Yeah, it got real very fast when that happened. But you know what, Ontario's been hit pretty good by COVID. Our numbers are pretty high here in terms of the countrywide. I mean, Quebec and Ontario have been the two that have been hit the hardest. So, especially in the Toronto area, and our region specifically here, we're the furthest behind in the whole province right now. So they introduced this tier system the other day, and we are still in the third tier, where a lot of the province is in kind of the open phase in the first tier. So we're working our way out of it. So we got restrictions for the building. We got restrictions for what we can do and everything. So we're still battling it here.
Wow. Well, good luck getting that stuff back open. I know all the facilities down here had to work through very similar circumstances. It seemed like, state by state, and kind of almost in some circumstances it was city by city. Things were opening up, but it sounds like y'all are a little behind us in that regard. But who knows, that may change this winter. We'll keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't. That we figured out how to maybe treat this thing a little better, and that we can keep some businesses open. Man, what a wild ride! What a wild ride this past year has been for you guys. Everybody had a crazy summer and fall, but you guys, I think, are you might take the cake on this one. Let's we talked plenty of baseball, but I want to pick your brain a little bit on specifics. This is a question I pretty much ask everybody that comes on. I kind of I present it as I want to find out your take on the state of travel baseball, and I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And obviously, this show is called Travel Ball Talk. I work in travel baseball. I'm a fan of travel baseball. So when I say the bad and the ugly, I don't really mean it's not to bash on anything or anyone. I look at it as more like, do you see something where there's maybe room for improvement or an opportunity? I think is a good way to say it. So we're all obviously fans of travel baseball, but I think there's always frustrating pieces and parts. So take that question. You can start with either way. Do you want to talk about all the things what's happening right now that you love, and are there some things where you could see improvement or opportunities for fixing or making things better?
You know what, I really like where everything's at. I mean, for us, I don't think we're down there for a couple months of the year. We hit our perfect games, our Future Star Series, a couple different events in there. I saw you had Jay on from the Cincy Flames tournament.
A couple weeks ago.
Well.
Yep.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy, and that event he runs is fantastic too. But yeah, you know what? I really like where things are at. For us, like I said, we're down there 4 months of the year. Usually the bigger events. So, we have a great relationship with Perfect Game as well. And we're looking to do some things up here north of the border, hopefully once everything opens up with them, to start building that relationship even stronger. But, I have no complaints. I think, Twitter's a dangerous place. I think, everyone always talks about how volatile hitting Twitter is and pitching Twitter and all this stuff. And, I hope every, tournament that gets run and every, name that's out there, you're doing it for the right reasons. I think that's the key. I think, there should be no ego in travel ball. There should be no, my guy went here, my guy went there, and, our guy or this. It's about the kids. It's about the kids going to school. It's about the kids getting these experiences to play in front of the college coaches, in front of the pro scouts. And And as long as it stays focused on that and everybody goes about their business the right way, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a great thing. I think it's something that makes our players better, the ability to be able to be involved in U.S. travel baseball. So yeah, I don't have any complaints. I think it's, like I said, as long as egos stay out of it and it's just about the kids and, getting them to college and giving them those experiences and those opportunities, I think that's the key to it all.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Agree with all that stuff. Unfortunately, I don't know if you know this, there are some egos in baseball. A couple. Just one or two. Yeah. Speaking of Twitter, let's talk about Twitter for a second. Twitter is it's the best thing that's ever happened, and it's also maybe the worst thing that's ever happened. It can become your best tool while simultaneously being the most toxic thing you've ever stepped inside of. So how do you filter that? How do you personally navigate your way through the toxicity in hopes of the rewards of all the benefits that it brings?
I just try and look for what I want to look for.
Yeah.
To put it, I mean, your summary of Twitter is perfect. But yeah, I mean, for me, I look at it, I look at, what's going on around us, some of the competition we have in our area. I try and see what other programs are doing, and I know they're doing the same thing with us, I try and see what college programs are doing. I like to look at it more as a development tool, and what is, UNC Charlotte has all the tech, and we got a player there right now, a former player of ours. So I like following along with them.
Yeah, with Robert Woodward, he's killing it. Woodward, he's sort of cutting edge on the front side of all the tech stuff, on the pitching stuff specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, learning like that, I mean, being a pitching coach by trade, I love seeing that stuff, and that's my draw to Twitter. I mean, I love seeing kids from across the country and Canada, all the placement stuff, seeing kids from BC going places, Alberta, Quebec. It's awesome. I follow it for that reason too. But the biggest draw for me is the development side of things. Seeing what guys like Lance Wheeler, what Bodie's putting out there, and seeing those different things that help me grow as a coach, and seeing different things that maybe facilities. I mean, you mentioned Reich down there in Orlando. He's got his facility now. And you see what everyone else is doing, and you go, okay, maybe I got to add that to my wish list. That's something that's something that we need up here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would really help our guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if that helps you steer clear of the toxic stuff, and you just kind of stick to, okay, what's best for our guys, and what could help us, and what makes the Ontario Blue Jays better, and what makes me a better coach, and stuff like that. That's kind of how I use Twitter.
It really has become such a tremendous tool for sharing and for continuing the education and the growth. Now, I got to share, I sent this tweet. I won't say who it is. It's a kid. I sent this tweet to a buddy of mine just because it was so comical, right? So it can be a tremendous recruiting tool. It really can be. This kid, he's a quarterback. He tweets out like, hey, this is to all you college football coaches. If you're interested in me, I'm interested in you. Just slide into my DMs. And I'm just saying, I mean, I get, man, you got to shoot your shot, right? Like, I guess, but like, who's coaching this kid? I mean, you got to give this kid a high five for his honesty, right? But one of the things I see, and I wonder if you have any comment on this, these teenagers are really good at all, like they're really technologically savvy, but they seem to be pretty bad at Twitter. Like, have you noticed that, or is that just something I'm seeing? Like, how do you think if you had to grade your kids, for the potential of leveraging this platform, like, are they crushing it, or are they like average or below average? Maybe.
You know what? We try and tell our kids to stay off Twitter as much as possible. I mean, if you want to use it as a learning tool, that's great. I mean, our Twitter account, we try and put out stuff, to help out, and same with our coaches. I mean, one of our hitting coaches, is big. He dives into the hitting Twitter world. So there's stuff to be learned there, but yeah, our kids aren't overly active. I mean, the one thing we tell our kids, and I will say it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I don't understand when kids put videos up and tag college coaches.
It's terrible.
Or tag college.
Don't do it. Yeah, you're just annoying them.
Yeah, no, and my favorite is when they tag Corbin or Vandy.
Yeah.
You know that he's not seeing that. It's just I don't know. I understand the purpose, and we're lucky. Our kids have kind of learned that you don't need to do that stuff. We'll help you get to college. That's why we're in the positions that we're in, and I think for that reason, our kids are more Instagram and just have fun and use Twitter to learn stuff and to kind of see what's going on in the baseball world, and not doing it like, hey, if I tag the University of Washington today, they're going to recruit me.
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Highly, highly unlikely.
Again, hey, shoot your shot, kid.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I don't think it's getting you further ahead.
I don't fool with Instagram too much, and I think the kids are on there a ton. And I will say I heard a story this past summer where a young college coach saw a kid's video he posted on Instagram, and just like this quarterback asked, that coach slid right into that kid's DMs. And, maybe that's the world we're going. Now, the coach, maybe he's doing that to all the players. And as I think about it, I bet you he does. Because this was a coach at a high academic school. I won't say which one, but a very high academic school. And I asked the kid, what kind of grades do you have? And he wasn't high academic. So I'm sitting there going, why would this coach waste his time? So it's an interesting world. It's going to be weird to kind of watch and track that and see will coaches do what this quarterback is requesting? Will coaches start to slide into the DMs? God, I hope not.
Yeah, me too. I hope not.
So what are some of the other what are any topics that you and the staff up there, you and Mike, or you and any of the other guys, what have y'all been chatting about lately? Is there anything that just pops into mind, kind of either directly related or kind of related to this world of travel baseball?
Not especially. I mean, like I said, we try and stay out of it. I mean, some of our younger coaches are a little more involved in Twitter than myself.
Well, I don't mean Twitter specifically. I mean anything baseball wise. I
mean, obviously, when we came back from Jupiter, talking about what other teams look like, you look at the standings in Jupiter, and I think when you see standings from any of these big events, you can be very misled, right? You could see a team go 1-2, you're like, man, they must have had a terrible roster,
right? And
then you talk to Steeder, who was down there, and say, man, I saw those kids play. That's just tough division.
Yeah.
Right? Those guys are stronger than ever, and we talk about things like that in the building, and things that he might have saw. Or anytime we go down, I mean, obviously Mike's the one who's been down the most recent, but when our coaches typically come back from U.S. travel, we're always talking about, did you see what these guys are doing? Scorps did this, or East Coast, was doing this and all this stuff. And we just talk about it and, different things that we can implement, things you like, things you don't like. And then we kind of just, talk our way through it, and then we build our direction with it.
Love it. Now let's talk about that facility for 1 second, just because I'm kind of curious. Is the facility, how do I phrase this? Is this a private club just for Bluejay's players, or is it open to the public where any kid from town can come in and do lessons and get better at baseball?
A little bit of both. So the facility itself is called the Athlete Matrix.
Okay.
Our players have exclusive access to it. A little different with COVID, obviously, going around. But in a typical, normal situation for us, the kids can come in from 12 o'clock noon till 10 if they don't have practice or anything. They can hit, they can lift, they can throw, they can do pretty much everything. They got locker rooms and everywhere to hang out. But then we have the Ontario Bluejay Sandlot program that does clinics, that does lessons and camps, and that's more based to youth baseball players in the area that are looking to get better and learn from our staff. And Francis Cubos is the one who heads that up for us, and he does an incredible job with these kids and gives them opportunities to get better. And some kids end up playing here when they're a little bit older, and other kids get better and they keep playing in their local rep leagues, which is great too.
Got it. Cool. And the Wilkinsons own the, what'd you call it? The Matrix? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, the Athlete Matrix. Yes,
Wilkinsons own that as well.
Yep. all under one umbrella.
Incredible. Way to go, Wilkinsons, man. You guys are hooking it up for a lot of players up there. Well, listen, Joe, I've enjoyed talking to you. This was a kind of a roller coaster story day. What a tough road you've had for the last, what's it been, 6, 7, 8 months or whatever. Fingers crossed that this becomes a little simpler, getting back and forth, and with any luck, we'll be playing baseball here, this spring, which is honestly, it's right around the corner. You blink and it'll be springtime. So we'll be there, man. Listen, hang on for 1 second. I'm gonna stop the recording. This will be, by the way, if anybody's still listening, Mom, all this will be at playinschool.com/Ellison, and we'll put the links to the OBJ Twitter and to Joe's Twitter and the website and everything else. So, Joe, I appreciate it. Hang on the line for 1 second for me.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.